Today you're going to learn how to build a simple stopwatch in SwiftUI. So as you can see, there are two buttons. The first one is for starting the stopwatch, and if you click on it, you'll see the button turn red and giving you the option to pause the stopwatch. And the second button is simply to reset the stopwatch back to 0. And now let's get started. First, you need to open up a SwiftUI project in Xcode. And once you do that, we're gonna start by removing everything from the body, the content view, right? And we're going to create a state variable. The first one is going to be simply just the time. So private var time equals 0.0. So this is going to hold the elapsed time in seconds. And the second state variable we need is going to be a boolean checking if the stopwatch is running or not. So var is running and it's going to be false by default, right? Because we don't want the stopwatch running when we launch the app. And the third state variable we need is going to be the actual timer. So state private var timer, and then this one is going to be optional and it's going to control the stopwatch updates. And now let's move on to the body. So first we're going to add a vertical stack, so V stack like this. That way we can put the buttons below the stopwatch. So we're going to open curly brackets here, and then the first thing we're going to do is the text of the stopwatch, and it's going to be a string, and we can format it. So format, and we're going to do 0.2 here, and then F, and then simply we're just going to do time, right? This is going to help with the format, and then let's reload this for now. Okay, so you can see the 0.00 here, and then we're going to make it bigger, so font dot system, and then size is going to be, let's say, 64. And then we're going to do monospace digits. That way the spacing between the digits is correct whenever it's moving. So we're just going to remove the S here. And then we're going to add some padding as well. And then inside the vertical stack, the next thing we need is a horizontal stack. That way we can put the buttons next to each other horizontally like this, right? And the first button is going to be a simple button like this that's going to take an action, and then that action will be checking if the stopwatch is running. So if is running like this, and then over here we're gonna call a function which we're gonna create later. It's gonna be called stop timer, right? Because we're gonna stop the timer that we're gonna create later. Because we want to stop the timer if we click on the start button while the timer is running, right? And another thing we need is else we need to start it, right? Because if we click on the start button and it's not running, we need to start the timer. And then something is missing here, which is going to be the text or the image. So we're going to use an image here for the button, and it's going to take in a system name. And what's going to happen here is that we're going to check if it's running. So if it's running, we're going to do pause, and then if it's not running, we're going to do play, right? So we can comment these actually for now. And then let's add some styling to the buttons. So padding and then dot background. We're gonna do the same thing here we did earlier for the image, but instead we're gonna do a different color, right? So if it's running, we're gonna go with dot red, and if it's not, we're gonna go with dot green, because we want the pause button to be red and the play button to be green. And we're gonna add a foreground style for the font color to be white, and we're going to add a corner radius of 10 to make the borders rounded. So the next thing we need inside the horizontal stack is another button, and that button is going to be a reset button, right? So it's going to be very similar to what we did earlier in terms of syntax, but instead of checking if it's running, we're just going to call reset timer, which is going to be a function we're going to create soon. And let's comment this out. And then over here, we're going to use the same image here, and system name, let's say restart, right? And then let's add some styling as well. Let's actually use the same thing here and remove some of the stuff. So this is going to always be blue, and then everything else can be the same. So as you can see on the screen here, we have two buttons now, but nothing happens if we click on any of them. So now we can start creating the functions, and we do that outside the body, right? The first function we're gonna create is the start function. So private func start timer. It's gonna be very simple actually. So we're gonna set is running to true, right? Over here, we're gonna schedule the timer. So timer equals timer dot scheduled timer, right? And then with time interval. And then over here, we're gonna do 0.01, right? That way it repeats in milliseconds. And then we're gonna add repeats, and we're gonna set that to true, right? And then over here, we're gonna do curly brackets, right? And then in like this. And then inside the action block here, what we're gonna do is time plus equals 0.01 as well, right? And that's pretty much it for the start timer function. The next function we're gonna do is the stop timer function. So it's very simple as well. So private func stop timer like this. And then as you can expect, is running is gonna be set back to false. And then the timer is gonna be stopped like this. And that's pretty much it for the stop timer function. And now we're gonna create the reset timer function. So it's gonna also be very similar. So reset timer like this. And it's simply just gonna be calling the stop timer here and then setting the time to be 0. And now let's make sure to go back over here and remove the comments here, right? And now we can check if it actually works or not. Let's reload this. So let's click on the start button here and see if it works. So you can see that the start button is working. Now let's try to pause it. So you can see it paused, and now let's try to reset it. Cool, so everything seems to be working. Now after we reset it, let's test whether it still works after starting it and then pausing it and then resetting again. So everything seems to be working. And that's pretty much it for this video. If you learned something new, make sure to hit that subscribe button. And if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments below. Thanks for watching.